Hello, my name is Alexis Vandenbroek, and I will be teaching you one of the most effective studying practices that can be used while learning. This method of studying is known as retrieval practice. You will learn about the benefits of retrieval practice, how it can lead to higher success in learning, as well as other study methods that are not as beneficial. The learning objectives for this PowerPoint presentation are as follows. 1. As a result of participating in the PowerPoint presentation, parents will be able to support how students best learn through assessments embedded in the PowerPoint presentation. 2. As a result of participating in the PowerPoint presentation, parents will be able to integrate retrieval practice into studying practices to support effortful learning for their children. 3. As a result of participating in the PowerPoint presentation, parents will be able to remember how to help their children practice retrieval as they are learning different topics. 4. As a result of participating in the PowerPoint presentation, parents will be able to recommend the best ways to study for their children. Ineffective studying. When students are studying to enhance their learning, they are often studying ineffectively. One method that students use to study that is ineffective is cramming. The authors of the text Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning, Peter C. Brown, Henry L. Roediger III, and Mark A. McDaniel, mention that cramming can often give positive results on assessments. The knowledge that is gained through cramming quickly fades away due to more forgetting that happens after kids reread. Kids may feel that cramming is beneficial for them, but it quite often tends to have short-term benefits for students. According to an article written about the health effects from cramming, students may give up more of their sleep in order to cram or study for a test, and this will lead to them to struggle on their tests or work. Rereading causes issues. Another problem discussed by Brown and the other authors of Make It Stick, The Science of Learning, is that students tend to reread when they are studying. Students often will reread the material that they are studying because they feel that they are mastering the content. This is most often not the case, as they are not using any different skills to practice that learned knowledge. The text includes information about a study performed in a college course where students took an exam. Students that used different strategies to recall their learning scored higher than students who restudied the source material after taking it. A comparison in scores of 68% using recall strategies to 54% restudying the material. There's an issue discussed in the text known as the familiarity trap, and this is when students get the feeling that they know something and are no longer needing to practice it. So while students are rereading, they may feel that they are becoming familiar with the topic and will not feel the need to practice the skills or content anymore. Take a moment and think about the following question. What are some examples of ineffective methods of studying when students are trying to learn? Choose all that apply. Before you make a decision, think back on what has been discussed so far and write down your thoughts. The correct answers are A and C. As we have learned from the previous slides, cramming or massed study leads to knowledge learned being quickly forgotten. Rereading the source material often leads to students feeling like they are mastering the content that they are trying to learn, and they are not applying any practices to recall their learning. Take a moment and think about the following question. Why are cramming and rereading ineffective studying methods for students? You may pause the presentation and reflect on the given question. Please write a possible answer on a piece of paper after taking some time to personally reflect. Cramming is often seen as an ineffective study method due to the knowledge that is acquired quickly fading, and potentially losing or sacrificing sleep in order to study. Students may feel that they are understanding the information in the moment, but it will not be beneficial in the long term for them. Rereading is also ineffective for students because it tends to have students fall into the familiarity trap, where they feel that they are mastering the content, so they no longer feel the need to practice it. What is retrieval? The authors of the text, Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning, mention that retrieval practice is when students participate in self-quizzing and ask themselves questions while pulling knowledge and skills from their memories. Retrieval practice tends to have more long-term benefits for students than it does short-term. When students are practicing pulling the different knowledge and skills from their memories, they are slightly modifying the memory and making that information easier to recall when they need it again in the future. According to the authors in their research, when retrieval is being practiced, it makes learning stick much more than rereading or re-exposure to the material would. Retrieval practice tends to require more effort on the part of the student when they are studying because they are trying to identify the main concepts of a topic or answer questions, and they need to think back as to what the answer may be. It is important if the practice of retrieval is spaced out. That way students are not mass practicing this and it becomes something that they can easily have memorized. When the learning process requires more effort, it is often considered to be more beneficial for them. Some examples of retrieval practice include using flashcards, self-quizzing, and Lightner boxes. Effects of retrieval. According to a journal titled Exploring the Relationship Between Retrieval Practice, Self-Efficacy, and Memory, there is a positive connection between retrieval practice, memory, and self-efficacy. The journal states that the connection is promising and is an area that can provide a rich insight into further research. Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning includes information that indicates effortful retrieval practice creates stronger learning and better retention of information. When we practice retrieval repeatedly, our memories become stronger and knowledge is created that can be used in a large amount of settings, applied to a large amount of problems, and can be called upon easily. Self-quizzing through retrieval practice allows students to see what information they are comfortable with and understand, as well as what information they still need to work with and build mastery in. This allows teachers to see the disconnect between different material so that instruction can be adapted and modified for the needs of the students. The more that we use retrieval practice, the more information will be retained and the effects will be long-term. Take a moment and think about the following question. What are some of the effects of retrieval practice? Choose all that apply. Before you make a decision, think back on what has been discussed so far and write down your thoughts. The correct answer is D. We have learned throughout the content slides that through retrieval practice, the information that we are learning is strengthened with our memories. We have also learned that through self-quizzing with retrieval practice, students are able to get a better understanding of content that they know and do not know. Lastly, we learned that through retrieval practice, knowledge is created that can be used in a variety of settings, used to solve a variety of problems, and can be easily called upon. Take a moment and think about the following question. What do you think would be a benefit of using retrieval practice with your child? You may pause the presentation and reflect on the given question. Please write a possible answer on a piece of paper after taking some time to personally reflect. There are a variety of benefits that could occur from using retrieval practice with your child that are long-term. Their learning is easily retained and attached to memories that make it easier to call back upon when they need it. Students are able to tell what they are confident in understanding and what they need to work on, which in turn tells teachers what to work on with their students. Students are able to turn what they are studying into knowledge that they can easily call upon, use in a variety of settings, and use to solve a variety of problems. These are just a few examples as to why retrieval practice can be a benefit to put into a study routine for your child. Incorporate self-quizzing. One way to implement retrieval practice is to incorporate self-quizzing. This is where children are asking themselves questions, looking through what they are learning and trying to find the main idea, reflecting on what has been learned. When kids are self-quizzing, they have to use retrieval to think back into their memory to pull out the answers to questions that are stored, and this allows them to change or alter the memory, which in turn makes it easier to recall in the future. Self-quizzing tells students what they are proficient in, as well as what they still need to work towards mastering. This allows teachers to modify their instruction and work towards teaching students what they are still missing in order to be confident in the material. Students can use flashcards or an assessment method that they prefer, and it does not need to be administered by their teacher. Self-quizzing or testing may not be a preferred method by your student, but it will require more effort, which means that more knowledge will be retained. Importance of self-quizzing. Self-quizzing tells students what they're proficient in, as well as what they still need to work towards mastering. This allows teachers to modify their instruction and work towards teaching students what they are still missing in order to be confident in the material. Students can use flashcards or an assessment method that they prefer, and it does not need to be administered by their teacher. Self-quizzing or testing may not be something that your child likes to do, but it will require more effort, which means that more knowledge will be retained. Delay the practice. When the practice is spaced out, there is a certain amount of time between the sessions that allows for some forgetting to set in. When there is some forgetting that starts to happen, that makes the retrieval practice effortful. When the retrieval practice requires more effort, it leads to better learning. It is important to make sure that the interval has enough time to allow for a little bit of forgetting, but not so much time that the student begins to forget everything that they have learned. If the student ends up forgetting everything after a longer interval, they will end up having to relearn the content, and this will lead to less success with connecting the content to memories. A good tool to implement the delay of practice are Lightner boxes, as you are spacing out what skills or content are being practiced and how often, depending on how well you know the content. Take a moment and think about the following question. What are some ways to incorporate retrieval practice? Choose all that apply. Before you make a decision, think back on what has been discussed so far and write down your thoughts. The correct answers are B, C, and D. In the first content slide, we learned that self-quizzing is not teacher-administered and is actually student-administered. Students can work with flashcards and different patterns to practice studying different material that they have been learning and attempting to master. Students can also ask themselves questions or self-quiz to see if they understand the content that was taught to them during class or through readings. They can search for the main ideas and content as well. Take a moment and think about the following question. What are some ways you can incorporate retrieval practice into your students' studying skills? You may pause the presentation and reflect on the given question. Please write a possible answer on a piece of paper after taking some time to personally reflect. There are many ways to incorporate retrieval practice into your child's set of studying skills, and we have discussed a variety of these. You could practice using Lightner boxes with your student, using flashcards in a variety of methods, self-quizzing, etc. You can also teach your child how to self-reflect on their learning throughout the school day so that they can connect their new learning with prior knowledge and memories that they have. Avoid ineffective practices. To ensure that students are using proper practice techniques to get the best understanding of content, they need to avoid ineffective practice techniques. The ineffective practice techniques that are most commonly used are cramming and rereading to learn. Cramming most commonly creates a lack of sleep due to studying and has short-term benefits. A lot of information goes in at one time, but goes out just as quickly, leaving students unprepared for their assessments. Rereading leads to students feeling that they are mastering the content that they are going over, which makes them feel that they do not need to continue practicing. It is important that students continue to practice their skills, that way they do not forget what they have been taught. Make retrieval effortful. While it has been discussed throughout this presentation that retrieval practice benefits and improves learning, it has been discussed and shown that when more effort is required for the retrieval, there are greater benefits for the knowledge staying in the brain. When we also space out the practice of content and material for students, it allows some time for forgetting, which can require more effort to retrieve the knowledge that they are looking for. Different ways to ensure that we are making retrieval effortful is to use different methods of retrieval practice such as self-quizzing, flashcards, self-reflection, Lightner boxes, etc. When we use these different retrieval practice methods, we are allowing our students to make connections between their new knowledge to their memories. This makes the information easier for the students to pull out later on when needed. Take a moment and think about the following question. What are some effective retrieval practice strategies? Choose all that apply. Before you make a decision, think back on what has been discussed so far and write down your thoughts. The correct answers are A, B, and D. Self-quizzing allows students to question themselves over what has been learned, and they are able to reflect on what they know and what they need to work on. Flashcards can be studied in a variety of ways to help students solidify their understanding of content. Lightner boxes can be used to also help students space out their practice and become confident in a variety of content and skills. Using a variety of strategies to practice retrieval can benefit the students and help them learn how to increase their understanding. Take a moment and think about the following question. Why would it be beneficial to space out retrieval practice for your child? You may pause the presentation and reflect on the given question. Please write a possible answer on a piece of paper after taking some time to personally reflect. It would be beneficial to space out retrieval practice because this allows for forgetting, which can make the retrieval more effortful. When retrieval is more effortful, this makes the learning last and stick in the brain much longer. When practice is spaced out and delayed, we have to be careful of the amount of time that we give. We want to make sure that we give just enough time for forgetting to set in, but not so much that your child forgets everything they have learned. If your child has forgotten everything, they will need to start the learning process over, and this can be more time-consuming and upsetting.